1, 2. Yep, great. Amazing. It's so good to meet together, isn't it? Even though it's hot and we've got masks on and there's all these other things going on, yet it's still so good to meet together as the people of God, because that's what we were designed to do. We were never designed to live in isolation. We were never designed to live like hermits in our own homes. That's not what God designed us to do. He designed us to live in community, and we are better together. So however we get it, we'll take it. Whatever context it is, we'll meet together because we know that that's where we can find the blessing of God amongst us. And I found it really interesting, the song we were singing this morning, which said, sing like never before. I'm thinking, I can't really, I'm not allowed. But the problem was the song didn't say, sing like never before, oh my mouth. It was saying, sing like never before, oh my soul. And there's a difference to that, because when I read sing like never before, I think that means sing really, really, really loud, right? And that's not what that means. It means that my heart is singing, that though my mouth might not be singing, my heart is singing praises to God, whether I'm here on a Sunday morning or on the bus to work or putting kids to bed or whatever context that is. My heart is singing and praising God. And I'm finding it really interesting in this season that we're learning how to worship God in other ways than the ways that perhaps are traditional that we're used to. And so it's an exciting journey that God has taken us on. And as part of our journey as a church, I really felt to speak this morning about the beacon. You see, the beacon is the means by which God will advance his kingdom across Chesterley Street. And the beacon is a way in which the glory of God will be revealed, not just here, but beyond this place. So I just want to read to you from Philippians chapter 2. And this is a verse that Graham read out on Sunday. Philippians 2, 14 to 16. But this is from the Living Translation. And it says this: in everything you do, stay away from complaining and arguing, so that no one can speak a word of blame against you. You are to live clean, innocent lives as children of God in a dark world full of people who are crooked and stubborn. Shine out among them like beacon lights, holding out to them the word of life. You see, the beacon isn't a building. We have a building called the Beacon, and it is an amazing place, and amazing things will happen in that place. But the beacon is not the building. You are the beacon. You are the means by which God will advance his kingdom in Chesterley Street. You are the means by which his glory will be revealed. You are the carrier of the presence of God. We together as the church, we are the beacon. It's great that the building is called that, and amazing things will happen there, but it's because we're there, not because of an inherent building. And so we, together as the church of God, are a beacon of light, and we are shining with the glory of God, beacons amongst the darkness. I've mentioned before this song that we used to sing in Sunday school. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. I don't like it. Now, I'm sorry if you like that song. I'm sorry if it has sentimental value for you. But as even a child, I didn't like the song. I love the melody's nice. And I like the message of, yes, there is a light within me. And that light is the light of Jesus Christ living within me. And yes, I'm going to let it shine. I am going to show the glory of God that's been put into me, because that's what Jesus tells us to do. And he says, don't hide your light under a bushel. I've just got a problem with that one word, little. This little light of mine, this little insignificant flickering candle in the wind, I hope it just stays there, and it's so small, and maybe you can see if you can squint, oh, it's so fragile. That's not the light that is within you. Not this little light of mine, this beacon that shines out of me because the glory of God is shining out from you. Not this little flickering candle in a wind, this incredible blazing torch that is the life of Jesus Christ. That is who he is. Jesus did not come and his light was the light of men. That light was not just a little candle. He didn't just warm up the people around him. He blazed with glory. If you were in the room with him, you were drawn to him. There was something about this man that you had to get around him because his presence was so contagious. And his words were full of life, and the things he did were incredible, and you just wanted to be around this guy. That is the beacon. That is the light that is within you. It is not a small, insignificant light. God did not call you to a life of insignificance. If you believe that this morning, it's wrong. He's called you to be a beacon wherever you are. And in Chesterley Street, we are a beacon. In your home, you are a beacon. In your work, you're a beacon. You are a beacon of the glory of God that is within you. That when that beacon shines out, it's like the bat signal. You know, in Batman, when in Gotham, there's all these bad guys, and they're all kind of, Gotham's a horrible place. And then the bat signal shines out, and like you see all the bad guys cowering and quivering in fear, and all the police are going, yes, he's coming. When we shine out with the beacon of Jesus Christ within us, that's when the enemy cowers in fear, because the children of God have revealed who they are. They're not shying away. They know whose they are, as it says in that verse. We are children of God. And when we shine out, the enemy cowers. And all of heaven celebrates and says, yes, Jesus is coming. Because we are shining with the glory of Jesus Christ. It's not a light within us that's because of our talent or our ability or our skill or any of these things. It's as we hold out the word of life. As we hold out the gospel of Jesus Christ, that Jesus came and took our sin, that we could have relationship with God. As we hold out the presence of God and say, it's not about me. I decrease, he increases. I wane and he waxes. And in that moment, you see the glory of God. That's what the beacon is. And so this morning, if we need a title, it's Be the Beacon. And I have 3 beacon statements that I want to go through that will help us, I believe, in shining out with this glory that God's given us. So would you turn with me to 2 Samuel chapter 23? I'm back in the NIV now, I promise. 2 Samuel chapter 23, verses 8 to 23. I just want to read to you about David's mighty men. These people who dared to believe who they were, who dared to believe what their king told them about themselves, and dared to do great things for their king. And so from verse 8 it says this: these are the names of David's mighty men. Josheb-Basebeth, a Tachumite from the chief of the 3. He raised his spear against 800 men, whom he killed in one encounter. Next to him was Eleazar, son of Dodai, the Ahohite. I'm probably not saying any of those names right. As one of the 3 mighty men, he was with David when they taunted the Philistines gathered at Pas-dammim for battle. Then the men of Israel retreated. But he stood his ground and struck down the Philistines till his hand grew tired and froze to the sword. The Lord brought about a great victory that day. The troops returned to Eleazar, but only to strip the dead. Next to him was Shammah, the son of Agi the Hararite. When the Philistines banded together at a place where there was a field full of lentils, Israel's troops fled from them. But Shammah took his stand in the middle of the field. He defended it and struck the Philistines down, and the Lord brought about a great victory. During harvest time, 3 of the 30 chief men came down to David at the cave of Adullam, where a band of Philistines was encamped in the valley of Rephaim. At that time, David was in the stronghold, and the Philistine garrison was at Bethlehem. David longed for water. We know how you feel, David. And said, oh, that someone would get me a drink of water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem. So the 3 mighty men broke through the Philistine lines, drew water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem, and carried it back to David. But he refused to drink it. Instead, he poured it out before the Lord. Far be it from me, O Lord, to do this, he said. Is it not the blood of men who went and risked their lives? And David would not drink it. Such were the exploits of the 3 mighty men. Abishai, the brother of Joab, son of Zeruiah, was chief of the 3. He raised his spear against 300 men who he killed, so he became as famous as the 3. Was he not held in greater honor than the 3? He became their commander, even though he was not included among them. Banaya, son of Joadiah, was a valiant fighter from Kabzeel who performed great exploits. He struck down 2 of Moab's best men. He also went into a pit on a snowy day and killed a lion. And he struck down a huge Egyptian. All these added things to keep putting. And although the Egyptian had a huge spear in his hand, Banaya went against him with a club. He snatched the spear from the Egyptian's hand and killed him with his own spear. Such were the exploits of Banaya, son of Joadiah. He was too as famous as the 3 mighty men. He was held in greater honor than any of the 30, but he was not included among the 3. and David put him in charge of his bodyguard. Incredible exploits that these people did. Exploits that made them famous, that made them renowned, that people would talk about. Did you hear about this guy who killed 800 men on his own? Like, that is impossible. Like, even if you watch a Jackie Chan movie and he takes on 10, notice that every one of them comes one at a time, right? If they all went at once, he'd have no chance. But 800 at once. And yet it wasn't them. It wasn't their inherent strength. It wasn't their incredible training. These weren't Dwayne "The Rock" Johnsons. These were men who were dedicated to Jesus, or to God. And that's why it says God brought about a great victory. It was through believing what God had put in them that they saw this, not just because they were super strong. And God is calling us, I believe, to great exploits. I think 3 times it mentions the word exploits in this passage. And Ali was praying this week, and he mentioned the word exploit 3 times as he was praying. He talked about Bob, he talked about Dave, as people doing great exploits. And I believe God is calling us to great exploits. And exploits are when you choose to do something and you make a choice, where we have exploits, not excuses. Because there's always a legitimate excuse. There's always a reason to not do it. And these are usually legitimate reasons. They're usually reasons that other people would say, yeah, that's okay, you don't have to do that. Yeah, we understand. But when you make a choice, go after the exploit, you're choosing exploits, not excuses. Because heroes of the faith rise up when we make choices. When we choose to go down a path that perhaps we wouldn't have otherwise. Where we, as Ali's been preaching to us, don't just choose our comfort, but we choose the glory of God. When a teenager chooses at school to sit next to the person at lunchtime that no one else will sit next to, there's a hero of the faith rising up. There's a beacon of glory coming out. Or when the single mother who's been working shifts and comes home and is tired, and their daughter wants them to read a bedtime story, and they're really tired and they're watching that show on Netflix and they're halfway through, but they choose to sit with their daughter, read to them, stroke her hair, tell her how much God loves them. That is a choice made where a hero of the faith arises. When we make these choices, when we choose not excuses but exploits, however great and grand and incredible they are, we are choosing to become beacons and heroes of the faith. Ronnie said something a couple of weeks ago, which I loved at our community group. She said, I want to be famous in heaven, and I want to be famous in hell. I don't care about being famous on the earth. That's where I want my fame to be. And I loved that. Because in these small, seemingly insignificant moments where we might feel like that flickering candle, God sees, heaven sees, the enemy quivers, heaven celebrates because a beacon is being birthed in that moment. And so we choose these exploits. And yet, I think when you actually look at what these people did, it's a bit weird. Like, things that, when you actually break it down, doesn't quite make sense to me. Like Shammah, in verse 11, which is a really fun word to say, Shammah, he held his ground in the middle of a lentil field. Okay? A lentil field. Like, if this was a movie, and he was in front of, like, the king's palace, taking on these bad guys, that would be epic. It would be the kind of crux of the film. Or if he was outside the temple of God saying, you shall not pass, and kind of taking them all on. Incredible. But a lentil field is like, I don't think I would, I'd give up the lentil field. Like, I don't know if you've ever had lentils. They're okay, right? The lentil soup, yeah, it's a nice starter, but I wouldn't die for lentil soup. Okay, but this guy stands in the middle of the lentil fields and says, you're not even getting the lentil field. Why? Because if I give up the lentil field, next it'll be the barley field, and next it'll be the cattle field, and next it'll be the street and the palace, and I'm not even giving up the lentil field. That is a hero of the faith who says to the enemy, you can't even have the edges. You can't even have the lentils, because I know that that speaks of compromise. You see, lentils in the Bible speak of compromise. Think about Jacob and Esau. When Esau comes back from the hunt and he's starving, and Jacob says, sell me your birthright for some lentil stew. Right? And he gives up his birthright. He gives up his inheritance for this okay kind of soup. Why? Because he was interested in the immediate, not the ultimate. He wanted the ultimate. He didn't want the ultimate glory. He wanted that immediate dopamine hit. He wanted just what was right in front of him. And he was compromising on what God truly had for him. And actually, I believe that God has something so much better for us than lentil soup. But we often choose the lentil soup. You know, I'm having a go at Netflix today. I'm sorry, Netflix. I watched it last night. But sometimes we might choose to watch Netflix and we think, you know, I could go to the prayer meeting, but you know what? I'm tired. It's legitimate. It's a reasonable excuse. I've been working really hard. No one will mind if I don't go to that prayer meeting. In fact, I don't want to be religious. Lentil stew. You're choosing lentil stew when there's a steak available, or a plant-based alternative if you're a vegan. There's so much available to us, and we all choose the lentil. We choose that immediate thing. And actually, when we choose exploits and not excuses, heroes of the faith emerge and beacons of light emanate in the darkness. Don't give up your lentil field. Don't give up the edges of what God's given you. Our first beacon statement is this: be consumed with zeal for God's property. Be consumed with zeal for God's property. What belongs to God, say to the enemy, you can't have this. I'm not willing to give this up, whatever that looks like for you. See, when Jesus went to the temple and he made a whip and he drove out the sellers, he said, isn't my house supposed to be a house of prayer? But you've made it into a den of robbers. They weren't in the temple, by the way. They were outside. They were on the edges. They were in the lentil fields. Jesus drives them out and says, you're not even getting on this step. Get away from the temple. You don't belong here. This is a house of prayer. Get out. And he gets angry. And the disciples remember that verse. Zeal for my house will consume me. I'm consumed with passion for God. I will not let anything withhold me from the destiny God has for me and what he has for the place I live in, because I'm so zealous for his property, for everything that belongs to him. Sweat the small stuff. Be consumed with zeal for God and say, I'm going to take everything that God has for me because it means blessing for those around me. Be consumed with zeal for God's property. Then in verse 13, we learn about these three chief men. So these three kind of preeminent men who must have spent a lot of time with David. They knew him well, I'm sure. And they're the ones who go out and get the water. And they break through ranks. They go through, sorry, people at home. I'm moving around. They break through ranks. They go through the Philistine area for a cup of water. Okay? Now imagine carrying a cup of water through enemy ranks. Okay? It's hard. Like Leanne, my wife, can't even carry a cup of tea from the living room to the kitchen without spilling it. It's why we have a tea-colored carpet. It's strategic. Because Leanne has to fill her tea to the very top. And I tell her all the time, why don't you just get a bigger cup and fill it to the same amount? If she gets a bigger cup, she fills that to the top. And every time I'm like, Leanne, you know what's going to happen. Burning, like walking to the living room. And I imagine these guys were zealous guys. They're like, we're going to fill this cup to the top. David wants water. David gets water. Come on, guys. Fill it to the top. And then they've got to get through the enemies with this cup of water, like fighting them. I mean, I know that's really, but probably not how they did it. But they did it. Right? They broke through the enemy ranks with that cup of water for David, and imagine the devastation when he pours it out. I'm not drinking that. You think, David, it's risked my life for that. He says, no, it's so precious to me. You're so precious to me. You're worth more to me than a cup of water. It's brilliant. It's amazing. And I noticed that these guys, they're going after stuff like, if they'd broken through the ranks and brought back the enemy's idol, like, amazing. If they'd gone through the ranks and they brought back gold and all this plunder, wow. But again, a cup of water, like lentils, water, this is why these people are famous. And yet it wasn't what they brought back, it was their heart attitude. It was even in these kind of seemingly small, insignificant times with these seemingly small, insignificant things that heroes emerge. It's not about saving people out of a burning building. It's about those small, seemingly insignificant moments that we are beacons. You don't have to wait for that moment of glory on a stage. You just need to know that when you let that person go ahead of you in the queue, you are shining. When you pay for that person's shopping, it was only £2, you pay for them, you are shining. When you could gossip because you've got that really juicy thing and you want to look good in front of your boss, but you don't say it, you are shining. It might seem like lentils and water, but this is the moment when heroes emerge and beacons are born. And so they give this water to David. David pours it out. But David, do you notice, didn't tell them to do this. This wasn't a command. Like, this wasn't like a quest he sent them on. He didn't say, guys, I really need some water, so here's what you're going to do. I want you to break through the ranks. He didn't do that. All he did was kind of say almost into the air, like, oh man, if only I could have a cup of water. Remember that water from Bethlehem? It's like the best water. Like growing up, I'd have a cup of that water. It was so good. If I could just have a cup of that water, that would be amazing, right? He wasn't telling them to do this, but they heard what he said and said, you hear what David said? He wants water. Let's go. Let's get that water. But he didn't command you. It doesn't matter. The king wants water. The king gets water. He doesn't have to command me. I don't respond just to his commands. I respond to his heart. I respond to his desires. And that's what made them incredible, that they would choose to go after the king's thirst, not just the king's words. You know, I think Leanne's birthday, I'm talking about Leanne a lot today, but it's Leanne's birthday on Saturday. It's Friday. Ooh, Friday. Glad you're all here. It's been recorded. So on Friday, it's Leanne's birthday. And I said to her, even this morning as we were driving here, I said, what do you want for your birthday? Oh, nothing. I don't really want anything. It's a trap, that, right? That is a trap. And if I fall for it, I'm done for. If I go, you said you didn't want anything. Oh, and she said, I don't know. Just a nice day. A nice meal at home. And, maybe the kids can make me a card. If I fall for that trap, that's me for the rest of the year in the doghouse, right? I know what she's saying. She's saying, listen to my heart, dummy. Because probably, and I can't remember, this makes me look bad, but maybe last week she probably dropped me a hint. She probably said, oh, if only I could have one of those beautiful necklaces everyone's wearing. Do you know, she wouldn't ever ask me because it's not a test, but it's a relationship. And she doesn't want me to be her soldier going out and getting her things. She wants me to be her husband, her friend. She wants me to be someone who hears what she says and also what she feels and respond to that. She wants me to be able to say, I know you didn't say me to get anything, but I knew you'd love this, and hope I'm right. And David, he's not dropping hints here. He's not saying, oh, if only someone would get me a glass of water. But they listened to the heart of the king, and they responded to the heart of the king. Our second point is this, our beacon statement is be connected to the heartbeat of God. Okay? Be connected to the heartbeat of God. It's not just about following a set of laws and commands. Okay, that's not what relationship with Jesus is about. This draws us to him. This brings us to the King. It's about relationship and intimacy. It's about saying, of course, Jesus, if you say to do it, I'll do it. But I want to know you because you said you're not just calling us servants, you're calling us friends. You're calling me to a greater place where I can know not just the heart of God, but the heartbeat of God. Every single beat that comes from his chest, I'm listening to. I want to know, what are you saying now, Lord? What are you saying now, Lord? Where do you want me to go now, Lord? I'm here. I'm with you. Like John putting his head on the chest of Jesus, just listening to that beat. I've loved having the drums. Dennis, amazing job. And I've missed a beat. Like I've missed having a beat in worship, even though we can't do anything about it singing-wise yet. But there's something about a beat, right, that rises something in you. And when you hear the heartbeat of God and you respond to that and you dance to that, that's when we see incredible things. Be connected to the heartbeat of God. It is not just about following his commands and his ordinances. It's about following his heart and saying, I don't even know now where I end and he begins. I'm so connected like a vine and a branch. Like I don't know where I can start, but I know Jesus. That's the place he's calling us to. That's when we shine, because we shine like he does. The king's thirst comes first. And finally, in verse 20, we've got Banaya, amazing guy, and he keeps adding like these extra things, and he did this, and he did this, and he killed an Egyptian, like keeps adding all these things. But he went down into a pit on a snowy day, and he killed a lion. Like, yeah, okay, killing a lion, that's pretty epic, but the lion's in a pit. The lion's not going anywhere. The lion's not doing anything. And can we also go back to the fact that this is a snow day? Like, it's a snow day. Nobody goes out on a snow day, right? On a snow day, that's the day of excuses, right? If there's ever a day of excuses, snow day, right? As a teacher, I love a snow day, right? I know what I'm going to do, sledging, snowman building. I'm not doing any work. It's a snow day, okay? And I'm sure there were other mighty men saying, guys, it's a snow day. Let's relax. Let's get our shields and go sledging. Let's have a great time. Let's have a snowball fight and practice. You can take on 800 of us at once because we know you love that. Like all that stuff. But this guy, Banaya, says, no, do you know what, guys? I'm out hunting. Like, it's a snow day. You're going to slip. We're not used to snow. It's very hot here usually, don't you remember? He's like, no, I'm going out. He goes out and he sees a lion in a pit, not bothering anyone. In a pit, it's fine. Leave it. Go sledging. But Banaya doesn't. He goes into the pit in that small enclosed space with a lion. It's making it a lot worse for him. He takes on the lion and he kills it. Why does he do that? Why go into the pit and kill a lion on a snowy day? Because the lion that's in a pit today, the lion that goes after your children tomorrow. Because you leave that lion in the pit now, it's fine, it's not hurting anyone, it's not doing anything. Yes, it can be dangerous, but it's contained. When the snow melts and the lion crawls out, the lion goes after you later. Kill your lions now. Those things that, it's okay. It's not sin, it's not bad. It's just a habit. It's just something I do. It's okay. It's contained. It's not hurting anyone. No, that lion today gets out tomorrow. Kill your lions, whatever it might be. It might be self-esteem. It might be, it's okay. I sometimes say this about myself. I say, my nose is too big. I say I'm not good enough, all this kind of stuff. That lion today, it's contained. It's fine. Tomorrow, next week, next year, ends up being the thing you start wondering, why my kids all have such low self-esteem? Why do they always talk bad about themselves? Because they've watched you for 5 years looking in the mirror saying, get your lions. Kill your lions, those lions that are in the pit, because they are the lions that need to be taken on today. Our third point is this: be concerned with the unconcerning. Be concerned with the seemingly unconcerning, with those things in our lives that are okay, that are fine. But when you're called to a higher level, when you're reaching new depths with God, suddenly what was okay yesterday isn't okay today. Suddenly that thing that was totally fine for you today, now your standard has shifted. And now you won't even say that word because your standard shifted, because in this journey on radical holiness, you've reached a new level of holiness and you're saying, that isn't okay for me now. It's fine, no judgment. You could do what you want. But for me and where I am with God and being connected to his heart and being zealous for his kingdom, this isn't okay anymore for me. And I'm stepping into a new level. And I love how all through this part of the scripture, it's talking about seasons. It says in verse 13, during the harvest time, that's when they break through the ranks and get the water. During a snowy season, that's when he kills the lion. It's almost like they're defying the seasons. There's a season to do things in. And that's true of us. There are seasons. But exploits are done when you don't let the season be your excuse. It's summertime. I'm going away. I can relax a bit more now. I don't need to read my Bible as much. I don't need to meet with people so much. I've got reasons, I've got excuses, and they're legitimate, and no one's going to bat an eyelid. No one's going to judge me. But if I want exploits, if I want to be a blazing beacon, if I want to set myself on fire and let people come and watch me burn, not with myself, but watching myself burn up and what's of him coming out, then suddenly I go deeper and I go further. And I say, do you know what? That was okay for me last week, but it's not okay for me today. Yes, this is a season of holidays and rest, but even on holiday, I'm in another country. I'm in Scotland. I'm in a caravan. I'm still looking for opportunities to bless people. I'm still looking for opportunities to shine out with the glory of God. I'm not off duty because I can't turn it off. I can't turn off the presence of God within me. There's no tap that says, glory stop. It's always running. It's always moving. And if I just get into the flow, exploits everywhere I go, whether I recognize them or not, whether anybody ever congratulates me or not, whether it's when I get to heaven that we find out who the heroes are. I believe when we get to heaven, we'll be shocked. And we'll be like, surely this guy, Lord. And Lord will say, yeah, he did a good job. But this person here, you should have seen what they did. And no one knows who they are. No one's ever even heard of them. And yet their prayer life was incredible. And their generosity was amazing. They were so hospitable to people. No one remembers. No one knew them. But man, I'm so proud of them. Well done, good and faithful servant. You shone with the glory of God. And so I want to keep in with what Anna was challenging us with a few weeks ago, and what Ali's been challenging us with, is that there's I feel like a call and a rise to action for the church. That we can go about doing the same things we've done, and that's good, and that's fine, and no one's going to bat an eyelid. Or we can rise to another level. We can say, God, I'm all in. I'm not even giving up the lentil field. I'm killing the lions on a snowy day. I'll go and get that water even though you didn't ask me to. because I'm responding to relationship with Jesus, not just a lifestyle handed to me and said, this is how you live. I'm saying, no, Jesus, I want to be just like you. That, I believe, is the challenge being thrown to us. And if you don't choose it, that's totally fine. That's absolutely okay. But there is another level, I believe. There's another way to shine. There is a new kind of glory that we can see. And if we have the courage and the audacity, the recklessness to follow it, then I believe we'll see incredible things amongst us. And I'm up for that. And I'm also not up for it, because I know what the cost is. So I'm in this place personally where I've got a bit of inner conflict, like, God, I really want to see those things, but I also, like Ali's been saying, I really like to be comfortable, and I really like to have my own time and space. I'm an introvert. I don't want to meet people all the time. But I know that's the only way to see God's glory, because the Beacon isn't a building. The Beacon is a group of people set in Chesterley Street who've set their hearts on Jesus and absolutely know that he is going to change the world through them and through his glory through us. Amen.